Kaimere is a distant planet. It is defined by waves of life brought from Earth and set free to evolve independently in this new context. The indigenous life of the planet, swarms of microbes called magic by the people who live there, are what harvest Earth organisms and make copies on Kaimere. As the asteroid which concluded the Mesozoic never struck Kaimere, dinosaurs remain the dominant terrestrial megafauna.
The abyss of Kaimere is a very unfamiliar place. As it is beyond the territory of the portal, its challenges and extinctions are not supplemented by harvest, and very few deep-sea fauna of Earth are sent to this habitat, so it can be quite distinct from our own. Yes, there are anglers, sleeper sharks, hagfish, and other familiar denizens that likely were harvested higher in the water column, but a few surveys that the Assembly have able to conduct have revealed many entirely novel clades of animal. Perhaps the most famous is called the Steward of the Abyss by the Kaleen, Zolannytok, in the language of the Aquatic, the whalers who most frequently encounter this formidable sea monster. According to the Aquatic, these monsters can reach lengths of just over 16 span, so 27 meters, or nearly 90 feet. That would make them easily among the largest animals of Kaimere. The largest specimen the Assembly has ever even roughly documented was a live specimen that spouted near a research vessel estimated close to 17 meters, and the best specimen with thorough measurements was a beached carcass on Picardia's southern coast just under 15 meters. Most cited are much smaller, between 4 and 7 meters. It is possible that they can get much larger, and there are certainly biases we'll get to which account for most being much smaller, but it is also not uncommon for the size of sea monsters, based on eyewitness accounts, to be highly exaggerated. That said, Aquatic whalers are precise as a matter of their livelihood in these estimations, and better than most at quick guessing of size. After all, the disparity in danger of a 15-meter and a 20-meter sperm whale cannot be overstated. It is critical to their survival that they be good at these guesses. Most in the Assembly are highly skeptical of size estimates exceeding 15 meters, and these are the maximum dimensions listed in most treatises and bestiaries, but many will concede that far larger specimens may well be out there. Most of what is known about the Steward of the Abyss comes from juveniles and subadults which often hunt in the Kaleen Sea. The mother will emerge from the depths and birth live pups already hatched within her. These pups are around half a meter long. They grow slowly, spending as much as a century within the Kaleen Sea as mottled ambush predators before their hide pales to a gray to off-white, finally becoming entirely white upon maturity past their first century. They are believed to be among Kaimere's longest-lived animals, close to sleeper sharks and surpassed only by chimerans and other enchanted beings. Though magic was initially assumed to explain their slow growth and long lives, it seems to be a natural process, again similar to the sleeper sharks which share their domain. In their youth, stewards are moderately active ambush predators. They generally prefer carrion, though will readily ambush prey. Their sense of smell is extremely potent, drawing them toward a carcass from miles away. In their first years, they will remain within the relative safety of kelp forests, where they have plenty of places to hide. They live and grow slowly, so don't need a tremendous amount of food, and can afford to be cautious, waiting for opportunities to come to them more often than not. Juveniles have large gills and almost exclusively breathe water in these years. It is assumed this benefits them not having to surface and remain hidden. When they do breathe, it is through buccal respiration, gulping air. Usually they only have to do this after strenuous activity, such as fleeing a predator. Once they reach around 4 meters in length, typically between their 30s and 40s, they venture out into the open Kaleen Seaway, Their lifestyle remains the same, being slow predators and scavengers. Most of the marine mammals they hunt are taken while they sleep. Even fish with sensitive lateral lines can often be ambushed, as the young Zolannytok moves so slow it is often able to evade their awareness. They are not without their predators, but many sharks, marine reptiles, and orcas aren't much interested in Zolannytok despite their slow motion. The aquatic describe their flesh as rancid and slime adhesive and nauseating for hours after exposure. It is presumed this slime and rancid taste is their main defense, especially against predators like mosasaurs that seek and select prey by taste. Breathing air often isn't terribly important while out in the open seaway, as this water is quite well oxygenated. However, they do spend much of their time toward the sea floor, which can be several hundred meters deep, and sometimes they come up at night to breathe. By the time they reach a length of around 7 meters, usually toward the end of their first century, they begin to spend more time in increasingly deeper waters. Their mottled hide fades to a pale ivory once they reach maturity. It is at this time that they swim out to the deep oceans to the south and truly earn their title as stewards of the abyss. The deep oceans are often quite poorly oxygenated, so the steward often has to come up to breathe. Usually this is at night in the rise in the water column to hunt prey, along with many other deep ocean beasts. This is when most sightings occur, a pale monster rising from the black. As they must gulp air to breathe, it can be a harrowing experience. A sea monster, with a head wider than a man, is tall, biting at the surface of the water with shrill and strained gasps before disappearing below dark waves. They are also drawn to whaler ships. Often they remain too deep to be seen, waiting for the hunters to make a kill before rising up and biting the corpse. Their crescent-shaped jaws are lined with hundreds of serrated teeth and sharp keratinized lips. With a few forceful jerks, they are able to saw off a massive chunk of cetacean, gaining all the meat they need for the month, and then evaporating below the surf. Based on harpoons in the same position, or distinctive scars, whalers have attested that it is often the same individual stewards returning to ships, as if they know which vessels are whalers. All this seems to imply a fair amount of intelligence in knowing to follow these particular ships. In the absence of whalers, they are still prolific scavengers. Stewards often rise up to feed on whales once they are slain by megalodon, motomazor, and other cetacean hunters. Living cachalot and other whales have been found with scars of the distinctive slicing bites of Zolannytok, suggesting that sometimes these whales are actively hunted. It is likely while they sleep toward the surface rather than while they hunt in the abyss, but it still implies that they can be far more active predators than the lethargic motion might otherwise suggest. Females do not come back to the kelp forest to birth until they are quite large, around 12 meters. It has been suggested their gestation may take many years, perhaps over a decade, like sleeper sharks. Their courtship, mating, and gestation are unknown, likely occurring hundreds of meters below the surface, but females birth dozens of live pups when they do visit these kelp forests. A 13-meter corpse beached on southern Kidan in the 1830s was pregnant and had 47 pups, many of which were still alive, and the assembly who were authorized to study were able to send many into the nearby kelp forests. The phylogeny of the Zolannytok is fairly well understood. They are carbosuchians, initially classified as a type of newt. Within carbosuchians, they are in the secondarily aquatic clade Dipterobranchia. and are the nominative member of the marine family Athanatidae. However, the placement of carbosuchians themselves in the tetrapod family tree is a matter of some debate. Based on a number of cranial features, these ancestors are stem tetrapods are generally found to either be sister to or very earliest temnospondylus or within the stem of the clade. Temnospondylus are a group of basal amphibians which may be ancestral to modern amphibians like frogs and salamanders. Other studies have found carbosuchians sister to colosteids and baphetids, which are more basal stem tetrapods. The ancestors of carbosuchians, whatever they were brought to Kaimere around the beginning of the Carboniferous, likely in the interval during or shortly after the greening of Kaimere 360 million years ago, so predated the earliest current proposed member of the clade Temnospondylus. As the exact definition of temnospondyle is a matter of some debate, and sometimes include some or all modern amphibians, others making the definition more narrow, carbosuchians may end up being excluded. Their exact relationship is not really much in question, just a matter of which term technically applies. They are also often called labyrinthodonts, which is now no longer recognized as an exclusive clade, so much as a body plan and lifestyle, a grade of tetrapodomorph defined by large heads, and a similar lifestyle to modern crocodilians. Most in the assembly still call carbosuchians labyrinthodont temnospondyls, but as they are excluded from this clade by some definitions, some assign them to their own distinct group. There are numerous other carbosuchians within the known world. The most diverse are the Alloverma, with a dozen or so species found throughout Arvel and Nikar. It is believed that they originated in Arvel, which is where they are most abundant and speciose. They are generally around half a meter long or less, though the iolode of the Arvelith basin lakes can sometimes exceed a meter in length. They tend to favor slow-moving freshwater environments like these central basins, where they ambush and scavenge a wide range of prey. Unlike the Zolannytok, they have lost their gills, presumably because of terrestrial ancestors, and must breathe air exclusively, though they can intake oxygen through their skin and often only need to breathe a few times a day. Unlike the Zolannytok, which is attested to have surprising intelligence, study of the few known allovermans indicate far less developed cognitive function. There are also relatives of the Zolannytok in the order Thalateurodella within the known world. This family, the nominative Thalateurodelidae, include freshwater, brackish, and marine species. It is believed that these generally cold-adapted animals evolved in Kaishel, and when the Picardio-Kaline plate broke off, this clade was carried north along with it. However, it's also possible that they simply swam north and populated more recently. The Maunyuk, meaning corpse salamander in the language of the Aknuk whalers, is the largest species found in the rivers and shallow seas of the Kaline Sea and Picardia. They can get up to 4 meters in length, though the more active males tend to be as much as half the size. They will birth their pups in freshwater, where their young must spend the first few years, though adults seem perfectly content in both fresh and salt water. Young have partially external gills, but as is typical of carbosuchians, they don't have a tadpole or larval morph stage like many modern amphibians. They are especially common in the Gulf of Iritame in eastern Picardia and kelp forests throughout the Kaline Sea. Though the alligator is found in some of their range and certainly offers competition, the Maunyuk has far greater cold tolerance and is indeed much more comfortable there, and they can also better tolerate salt water, so are far more common throughout the Kaline Islands. They live a long time, with estimates up to a century, but of course nowhere near as long as their abyssal cousins. Like the Zolannytok, they have both sophisticated gills and lungs, and can breathe both air and water with equal efficiency. Like Zolannytok, they do tend to breathe air while hunting, mating, or dueling, as the oxygen intake tends to be more efficient. There is also another species of Mauniuk in the highlands of Picardia. Called the Gorots, same as the Mauniuk in Picardiant, this is a freshwater exclusive member of the clade endemic to the freshwater lakes of Picardia's highlands. Very little is known of this animal, other than it appears to be endemic to these Great Lakes. It has been suggested that this may be the same species, just a freshwater morph, as is seen in many fish in the Great Lakes. But as the Assembly has no specimens, and likely never will, this is one of the many questions regarding Picardian faunal cladistics that will likely remain a mystery. Another lineage of carbosuchians which seems to have originated in Picardia are the teratobatrachids, the monstrous frogs. Despite a superficial resemblance to frogs, they have enough differences in gait and appearance that they are often quickly evident that their body plan is merely convergent. They are primarily aquatic and, like their sister clade Thalatourodella, they can breathe both air and water with equal measure. When they walk on land, they crawl. The hop that much of their anatomy is adapted for is employed for rapid ambush or escape from predators. After waiting in ambush, this launch can see them accelerate up to 8 miles per hour. Perhaps not that impressive at face value, but it's a blinding acceleration when launching after prey in a short distance. In Picardia, the largest species of these monstrous frogs is the Motobara. They can rival the largest of Earth's frogs, weighing up to 3 kilograms. However, this is nothing compared to the size this clade achieved once they got to the Siritic wetlands. The Zishun. Males of this species of carbosuchians can sometimes reach 90 kilos. Females, though far less active, can attain an estimated 250 kilos based on the largest skeleton in the archives of Balundukoi. The Sarid speak of even larger individuals deeper within the swamp, though as Assembly studies in this region are fairly limited, and at the behest of guides from the Great Library, these rumors are difficult to substantiate. They are said to occasionally be man-eaters. These are active predators, though it seems likely given their size, they generally would target children. They're not nearly as able to process a kill as their larger cousins, which can break apart prey with strong lateral shakes. So these often bury corpses they can't swallow for a few weeks, then the Zishun returns to eat parts once they are more easily broken apart. In this and many ways, they are presumed to be more intelligent than frogs that they resemble, one of the many formidable threats in the Siritic wetlands. There are plenty more carbosuchians beyond the known world. While not as abundant as other clades, the carbosuchians have much stronger presence here than other relics of the First Dynasty. They lack many of the novel adaptations of heterotherms and fabodonts, but it seems being basal generalists has meant they're able to fill a much wider range of niches. The Zolannytok perhaps best exemplifies this versatility, quickly becoming among Kaimere's largest predators. Cheers to both Ian and Tom for jointly sponsoring this episode. It was for the Zolannytok, but I've been wanting to revisit some other carbosuchians and to clarify their natural history for a little while now, so adding the revisions to the Mauniuk and Zishun just made sense for the timeline. It was a lot of fun revisiting these old designs. Thanks again to Ian and Tom, to my Patreon patrons for your support, and thank you so much for watching. Cheers, folks!